It's Cageside with John Morgan.
And welcome everybody to another episode of Cageside with John Morgan. I'm your host, Eric McMahon. Kamaru Usman looks vintage. Kamaru Usman this past weekend in Atlanta, Georgia. I can't wait to talk about this. So let's bring him in right away. His name is on the marquee. You can follow him on X, John Morgan _MMA. What up, John? How you doing, brother?
What's going on, man? Listen, we got a lot to talk about because there were some things that happened on that card. There were some things that happened involving you specifically that we got to talk about as well. But yeah, Kamaru Usman, man. I mean, gosh, we kind of talked about it coming into the week and just kind of saying, hey, we were going to be cheering for him. And hey, if he can execute out there, he can make this more interesting than people are seeming. But, man, that performance, I was just in awe as I watched round by round by round of that fight unfold.
If you go back 1 week, I said, no matter which way this fight goes, everybody's going to be like, well, yeah, duh. Remember, if you call, I'm like, if Joaquin Buckley comes in and dismantles Kamaru Usman, like the odds were indicating, then everybody would have been like, yeah, duh, Kamaru Usman has not fought in 2 years. He's, lost 3 of his last 4. And then a 2-year layoff, plus he'd had all these injuries. Yeah, duh, of course, Joaquin Buckley is going to destroy him. On the flip side, if Usman was to go out and do exactly what Usman did last night, you say, yeah, duh, it's Kamaru Usman.
It's true, but you know what? You just didn't know until it happened out there. And to me, I still am just amazed that he is still that Kamaru Usman, right? Because he is 38 years old, and we do know that, time does, it never loses, right? Father Time is undefeated. And we do know the knees have been an issue, that the injuries have been there. But this looked like the championship era Kamaru Usman. And I didn't know if we were going to see that or not. You hear people say things all the time. No, the time away was good for me. I was able to heal up. I was able to, but this was special. And you could tell it was special, right? Because the emotion that was displayed by Kamaru Usman after he got the victory just goes to show you that I think there was self-doubt even there. That the naysayers and the concern were all starting to weigh awfully heavy. It had been years since he has had his hands raised in victory.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It's been a while, man. So this was a big result. And it was just, to me, it was a fun fight to watch because the opening round.
2021. Hold on. November 6th of 2021 was his last victory.
3.5 years, almost 4 years, man. That's crazy. So, but to me, it was not only the fight, it was just the fact that the way that it played out and the fact that he was able to repeat the process every time, and the fact that he was able to hold on, when Buckley was having a massive charge forward in round 5 and gain a little bit. There was so much to this fight that I really, really enjoyed. And I thought it was great to see, man. I really did. I was really happy for Kamaru Usman in this. And again, like I said, when you see that emotion in the post-fight, both in the cage and then backstage at the press conference, it just goes to show you that I think those doubts that everybody was offering concerns about were weighing heavy on him as well.
Yeah, and I think it really opens up some possibilities at 70. I know he said he wanted to do 70 and 85. But really it opens up. Imagine, would you pay to see Usman and Shavkat?
Oh, 100%. That's a great fight.
To say Usman and Ian Gary.
Absolutely.
It just opens up this huge amounts of possibility the way I look at it, because he's probably going to come in around the 5-6 area. Then you got Shavkat at 2-3. You have Ian Gary at the 3-4 area or 5. So it just, and I love him in this spot particularly because he is the measuring stick of, are you going to get there? Shavkat, are you going to get there? Ian Gary, are you going to get to that elite of the elite? Do you have the championship pedigree to go to beat a guy? Now let's be like, regardless of how great he looked last night, he's 38 years old. He's past his prime.
Right.
But do you have the ability to get through a GOAT a little bit past his prime to get to that title, conversation? I just love the position that he is in right now because he can be that guy. And I think for a Kamaru Usman, I know he's got championship aspirations, but it's almost serving two masters at the same time. Because if those fights line up, then he's right there. He's right back there. Let's just say he gets a Shavkat. If he with a win over a Shavkat, he is fighting for the title. There's no question about that.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, one name that you didn't mention that I like in there as well is Bilal Muhammad as well. Now, he was very dismissive of Bilal and saying, I don't know. But, they've had this little history of some tension along each other as well. So there's a fight there. Look, you just got a lot of matchups you can make right now at welterweight, which makes it exciting. I mean, you're seeing, the fresh names that are making their way in and kind of revamping the division. But you're seeing this last little bastion of this old generation that's hanging on and showing that, hey, we're still there right now, right? And let me just say, by the way, Joaquin Buckley, the way he lost that fight, a lot of people may be ready to write Joaquin Buckley off and say, see, you're not. But I love the character that he showed in the 5th round. The fact that he didn't mentally break. He didn't physically break, despite the fact he was clearly down 4 rounds to none. I think there's bright future for him as well. So welterweight, to me, is looking good. Welterweight not that long ago felt like a division that had kind of stagnated a little bit, right? Where it was like the same guys kept facing each other, and it was the Leon Edwards and Kamaru Usman and Colby Covington, and maybe throwing a little Gilbert Burns there as well, and just over and over. Now we got all these fresh names and these fresh matchups that are possible. So yeah, you said it. Kamaru has got championship aspirations, and I understand it. He's been to the top of the mountain. He's one of the greatest welterweight champions of all time. He wants to get back there. I don't know that this is going to be enough to get him that opportunity. So I think he's got to entertain the idea of facing one of those names that you just mentioned to try to solidify his position.
I don't ever think that Bilal Muhammad and Kamaru Usman fight will ever materialize, because I quite frankly don't think the UFC wants to have a Bilal Muhammad as a champion. The guy didn't finish fights and whatnot, albeit I think I was historically wrong, like epic proportions, but I said he was going to go down as the GOAT of the division. Right, which I was wrong, but that's how high I am on Bilal Muhammad. But the simple fact is, I don't think that's a fight stylistically that the UFC would want to put together. But a Shavkat, an Ian Gary, and those two have already fought, so somebody has to fight each other in there. And I think either one of those two guys, being Gary or Shavkat, fighting a Bilal Muhammad is too big of a risk for the UFC. So bam. Either get a feel-good story and throwing Kamaru Usman in there, he could get his title shot, or either one of those beat a Kamaru Usman, now they get a title shot. I love it. That's the first things I thought about last night when Kamaru Usman looked as good. I said he has a clear path to the title, and whoever beats him now has a clear path to the title.
Yeah, and you mentioned all those names that are all real possibilities. You got Sean Brady in that mix as well as somebody else who's right there up at the top.
I left him out because I think he's getting the shot now.
If he sits back and waits and sees what happens with Islam and Jack Della Maddalene, I would agree with that as well. And you know what, man? So it may end up being maybe Shavkat ends up being the right call, right? Because Ian Machado Gary, the other name right now, Leon Edwards needs a fight as well. And Leon Edwards and Ian Machado Gary have a little bit of a shared history. I think that'd be a great headliner over in Europe somewhere. So maybe that does leave Shavkat as the one that's up, and that's the boogeyman of the division, right? And Kamaru Usman said last night, I'm always the boogeyman of the division. So maybe that's the one that played out. It's interesting. The thing is, all these things make sense now. Whereas, before Saturday night, we're thinking, man, is Usman done? And I think you and I, we're out in front saying, listen, don't say just 3 losses. Go back and look at the context of those losses. Look at the fact that he was very clearly winning the first one of those. Look at the fact that the third one, had it gone longer, you're taking out the Hamzat Chimaev monster that nobody wants to face. So I think we were pretty accurate. I didn't know if he'd be able to go execute like that against Buckley, but I think we were right in our assessment. But now, all these conversations make sense, where if you're having it ahead of time, you're like, why are we even talking about this right now? Now these conversations make sense. This was a big result for Usman.
Now, Buckley, loads of talent. I think it's undeniable about the talent, the athleticism, the power that he does possess. But this was his first taste of top tier, elite, top tier, right? And I think that was evident. I do take a little bit of exception. Dominic Cruz last night kept on saying, it's like, well, he just didn't bring anybody in to train with. He didn't train in these positions. And I just don't, I don't think a guy going into a fight that of this caliber is only going to train his strengths, right? I don't buy that. But what it does say is that, you know what, there's not that many Kamaru Usmans out there. You don't feel that pressure. You know what, you can usually kind of like beast out of things against guys who are training. Now, did he bring in, should he have brought in, like maybe paid the extra and brought in guy like a Bo Nickel to come in and lay on top of you and see if you can get out from underneath that? Maybe that's, we can make that argument. But I just don't think he didn't train his deficiencies. For a guy at that level, of course you're training your deficiencies.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so either, especially knowing, I mean, how much commitment he has to getting where he is. And look, I thought he did execute well in the 5th round. I mean, look, you can train everything, and it's a little bit different on fight night. But, I understand because
Kamaru Usman, by the way.
Exactly. Kamaru Usman, you look at some of the subtle things that he was doing to keep his positioning. I mean, he's so good at just every time you build a base, he pulls that base away. But in the early going, I would agree. Like in round 1, when Buckley is literally just like clasping the upper body, preventing the posturing, and not really getting to a hip, not really trying to re-guard, like you could see there were some technical deficiencies there, or at least execution deficiencies in those moments. And as the fight was going on, one of the things I was saying, and again, this is all things that you learn. This is the thing, as long as you have these conversations and you learn, because as the fight was wearing on, I started thinking, look, if you need to get back to your feet against Usman, just take a chance. You know what I mean? Like, he's a guy, I don't think of Usman as a guy like, oh my gosh, don't expose your back, or oh my gosh, don't leave your arm behind because he's going to snatch it up. But what you got to do is just create a scramble and just move. And he was hesitating to do that. So whether or not that was lack of execution, lack of mental focus at the time, whatever it was, these are things you learn from. And there are deficiencies there. And if he doesn't shore them up, he will not be able to contend with the elite of the division. There's no question about that. But I tend to believe that he still can and that he still will.
I agree wholeheartedly. Now, where I do agree with Dominic Cruz is like, this is going to be the greatest thing that ever happened to Joaquin Buckley. He felt that elite top tier.
Yep.
He persevered and he won round 5.
Yep.
What that's going to say to his confidence moving forward and what that does to his confidence moving forward is immeasurable.
That's it. It's you go back and you watch that and you're like, hey, where was your mindset in round 5? What was going through your head in round 5? Was it because you knew at that point you were down 4 rounds to none, so you knew you could just fight freely and the tension was gone, and you realized, like, I don't have to worry because what was it? And build off that. But to me, I like that. Again, a guy that didn't physically or mentally break in a terrible situation and won round 5, I like that. That shows me some character. That shows me that, we got some building blocks here. Yes, we need to shore up the techniques. But it's not like you look at Joaquin Buckley and be like, well, the physical tools just aren't there. He'll never,
right.
The physical tools are there, right? You know what I mean? And you see that he didn't mentally break either in round 5. So to me, again, you want to win every fight, of course. Losses are never good. But I look at that and I see things. I go, oh, you can build off that. You can grow from this. So I completely agree. I think he showed us a lot in round 5.
100%. Now, I want to move on to the co-main event. I don't even want to discuss it, but Rose Namajunas looked great. Come to find out, Miranda Maverick did tear her ACL in round 2, and that maybe that drop wasn't a drop, but just unfortunate because I think Miranda Maverick, I've always been high on Miranda Maverick, but I didn't see that forward pressure out of her like I usually do. But I think that speaks to fighting the elite of the division, right? And understanding space and range, how great, Thug Rose really was on that. So here's where I do want to get to. I just needed to say that, unless you have anything you want to jump in.
I was just going to say, and to her credit, I thought she was really close on that arm triangle choke. I thought for a brief minute she had that thing locked in. But Rose, to her credit, she pushed down, created the space, survived. But I thought for a minute she's got this. So I did want to give her some credit on that submission.
All right, let's talk about it. Paul Craig. Rodolfo, right? Bellato. Rodolfo Bellato. This was one of the weirder things I've seen in this sport. Okay. Kevin McDonald, my good friend, was the referee for this. And if you guys follow refereeing stuff like I do, you'll realize that Kevin McDonald has been in some very weird fights over the years. Right? He's had some very weird things. I texted him, what the actual F? While he's at the event, and he just texted back, had to be me, didn't it? You know what I mean? But there's a lot coming out of this, right? And you're going to make the argument, did the up kick land really hard, or did it graze him? Did it even touch him? All this, that, and the other. Listen, I played football many years. I played, very high level. I mean, I dabbled in college football as well, right? And what I do know about head injuries is, like, it doesn't have to be a thudding contact to give you a concussion. grazing. If you watch football players most of the time, those helmet-to-helmet grazers give some of the worst concussions out there. And honestly, that's what it looked like to me. It looked like one of these bouncing, grazing off shots. Now, I'm not saying he wasn't flopping, and I'm not saying he was. But what I am saying here is none of us are freaking doctors, right?
Right.
And the situation was what the situation was. I have my opinions on whether I think it was real or fake, but I want to jump in. Let's set the stage, all right? Paul Craig was on bottom. Bellato was standing while a couple up kicks came up. Didn't really hit him. He grounded himself to a knee. Then an up kick came, and what appears to have glanced like collarbone, neck, and grazed off the head. Am I setting the stage correctly?
100%.
Okay, so with that, then Bellato just, in a weird, like almost looks to the referee at first, then flails backwards. And then it almost became a little bit chaotic because this is where people really think that he started flopping. Before I get there, what say you?
Man, well, first of all, you said it right, saying it's one of the weirdest things we've ever seen, right? Because that reaction was one of the weirdest things ever, especially when I watched it live, I didn't catch the fact that he looked over to the referee. It looked like it just hit and he went backwards, and I'm like, damn, those things can be nasty, right? And then you go back and watch the replay, and exactly what you said. It looks like Bellato turns and kind of goes, protest to the official before falling back and going unconscious. I got to be honest. I refuse to believe that he faked that. I see the speculation, and I don't deny that it looked incredibly weird, man. But I do know that in MMA, we've seen like delayed reaction knockouts before, right? Where somebody takes us to the brain, and you said it, in contact sports of all kind, not just combat sports. The whole science behind it is a little bit weird sometimes, and sometimes it takes a little moment for the brain to just kind of shut the body down and go into self-preservation mode. And it's not as if, like, what would Bellato be trying to fake his way out of? I mean, okay, the kick landed. Is this a fight that he wasn't winning at the time? Is this a fight that he feared? I mean, he was fighting well. And Paul Craig, I mean, is a dangerous guy, but Rodolfo Bellato, I don't think was intimidated by any stretch or felt like he was outclassed. And boy, I'm just looking for a way out of here. And also,
and he had earned the position in the dominant position.
Absolutely. And also, just the way, I don't know, the way he reacted is not something I've seen. And look, I feel like we've seen some people embellish from time to time. I've never seen somebody react and act like that. So do I agree that it was odd? Of course, man. It looks weird as hell. But I don't think he was faking it, man. I refuse to believe he's faking it.
I had a local promoter reach out to me right after it happened, and he says, that's for sure faking it, right? And I wrote back and I said, like, maybe. I said, but I don't believe it. And he's like, and I go, but I don't think so. And then he wrote back, why? And I go, being a referee for the past 10 years and the majority of my career doing, amateur and low-level pros, I've seen more times than I'd like in this sport people take the cheap way out. Quit, fake, a bevy of the reasons, right? And in those completely obvious ways of wanting out of the fight to quit or fake or do something, I've never seen a reaction like that, right? So here's how, like, what I would think, right? Here's just logically, if from what I've seen in my professional experience, is if you take an illegal headshot, what do you look to embellish? The shot to your head.
Yeah, exactly. You're usually holding on to it.
I'm seeing double. I'm seeing triple. Not this, I'm going to transform into an alternate universe, Twilight Zone-like state, and almost like frantically move myself to the cage. Then when the referee, Kevin McDonald, comes over, you immediately pull a half guard on him. That doesn't seem to suggest to me somebody faking something, albeit being completely counterintuitive to what just happened, which led people to speculate. But in my professional opinion, and my hundreds upon hundreds of fights I've reffed now, that is by far the weirdest reaction to a head trauma that I've seen. And it leads me to believe it was not faked.
I completely agree with you. I'm glad I'm not alone on that. It just felt like this to me looked like a body and a brain that weren't communicating exactly right. Like all the little neurons weren't firing exactly properly at the time. And we've learned it. Like that's some weird chemistry that goes on there. So again, you're right. You've seen people that, they're rolling on the ground, and you're right. What do? They hold their head, and it's like, that's not what he was doing. He was acting in a completely bizarre fashion. It is one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. And again, couple it with that instant reaction that was kind of a delayed reaction, that he gets hit and he kind of turns, and then
what was the fight down, where there was that delayed reaction knockout? You know which one I'm talking about? I forgot.
There's been a couple over the years, and that's what I think. Like, we've seen delayed reaction knockouts, right? We've seen a couple of them, and they always go viral for the highlights because it's so weird to watch. It's like a dude gets clocked and he's okay for like a step, and then he falls and goes down. We've seen that over time. That's what this appeared to look like to me. So I get it. It's more fun and probably gets more clicks for everybody to call the guy a faker and all that. I understand, but I just don't think he did, man. It was a weird reaction for sure. Now, the question that I have for you is, as the professional official and the trained referee, no contest or disqualification. Did you agree? Obviously, those take Bellato out of the equation and what you think about his reaction. There's no question. And credit to Paul Craig for when he was asked about Bellato's reaction, he said, "I don't even really want to talk about that. What I want to say is I did foul, and I'm sorry for that. I was wrong." So credit to Craig. So the foul is illegal. There's no question. Bellato's not carrying on. You got two choices at that point, right? It's either no contest or disqualification. The choice was no contest. What say you, right or wrong?
Let's take my relationship with Kevin McDonald out of it, because I am a huge Kevin McDonald fan. I consider him a close personal friend of mine, and he's literally one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet and very knowledgeable. Let's put that to the side. The scenarios that you laid out are absolutely correct. Disqualification or no contest. If this would have been past the second round, then we could have been disqualification or go to the cards, right? To make this decision, you have to examine what in totality was happening, not the singular act, okay? So as I purposely laid it out because I knew we were going to get here, what happened was he was standing. Rodolfo Bellato was standing.
Yep.
Up kicks were coming. He grounded himself. Up kicks didn't stop coming. So now it comes to intent. And the intent is what is really going to determine are A, no contest, or B, disqualification. Are you if Bellato was on his knees that whole time, then I can make the argument that yes, the intent to do an up kick to a downed opponent, there was malicious intent there. Now that's a disqualification. But because he was standing, grounded himself because he didn't want the shots to come, and in succession, the kicks didn't stop coming. Therefore, in no world would I see a competent referee, at least, and one with the hindsight of being able to review it, ever lead to anything other than a no contest in that situation. Because the no contest is saying, I don't believe the intent was to be malicious and harm there.
I think you laid that out perfectly, man. I mean, obviously, you've done the certifications and gone through all the training. I've just done decades and decades and decades of watching and calling fights. But I had that exact same thought process. I thought the right decision was made here. I thought this was a good call. And you know what? I think we talk about officials getting things wrong and when they make mistakes. I think the commission and everybody involved here deserves some recognition, because you talked about the exact scenario as well. The Mansour Abdul Malik fight with Cody Brundage, where they went back and reviewed the TKO, saw that it was a clash of heads that led to it, and then did go to the judges' cards because it was after 2 complete rounds in the third. They handled it all properly. So I thought they had 2 very weird scenarios within a short period of time that they both handled perfectly. I thought that
And
the right call was
on
made.
that fight. I would love to see who the RO official was, who actually recognized that and kind of probably. And my suspicion was it was Blake Grice, who was another phenomenal guy.
I think you're absolutely. To be honest with you, I think they actually said that on the broadcast. So I think you're actually spot on. And I wish I would have written that down, but I think they actually said that the replay official was Blake Grice that noticed that. But yes, so great, man. Way to walk through it. I thought the same thing. I thought no contest was the right call to make. And for exactly the reasons you said it. He had been in a standing position literally just moments before. He had gone down to a grounded position and then was kind of rising back up out of that grounded position. And so, as you said, those up kicks were coming the whole time. So I thought no contest was the right call here. What a weird fight this is. Like, you can't book it again, right? They were scheduled and they had the infection that delayed it. Then they had the fight and it plays out in this weird fashion. I think you just move on at this point. Yeah. I don't know if you worry about putting it back together.
We'll call that snake bitten, and it's not really going to overall impact all that much. Before we get away from this card, I do want to talk about Malcolm Wellmaker.
Ooh,
snap, dude. Okay, this kid is one to watch. I repped his Contender Series fight, and he did the same exact thing: a one-hitter quitter, walk-off, knockout. And that's all this kid does is knock people out. He's fast. He's explosive. He's got massive power. And you don't want to be in front of one of those punches coming from him. And I remember walking away from that Contender Series saying, like, this kid's got a future, kind of like I did when I said Mauricio Ruffy, like, watch out for this guy. I still think Ruffy is in all the people in the contenders. He's still the highest ranking. But this Wellmaker kid is there as well. But I didn't see him in a war. I didn't see him against the highest level talent guy, but I did notice the speed, the athleticism, and the power. And that came, and we saw that again last night in a horrifically brutal knockout.
Star in the making. He's got a great look. He's great on the mic. He's got all those intangible things that you need, but the skills are there. And you said it, the speed, the power. And again, the thing that so impressed me about this is it wasn't like just, close your eyes, throw a shot, and you have God-given power, and it landed on the chin, and the guy went out. It was set up. You know what I mean? He had landed to the body earlier. He had done some damage with the kicks to the body, so he kind of
carried and came over it too.
Just all gorgeous, man. It's just the skills that are there. So yeah, Malcolm Wellmaker looks absolutely like the real deal to me. That bantamweight division is stacked. So there's a lot of weight, but he's still early in his career. He's got time to develop. But as far as the raw tools being there, man, oh my goodness, they are definitely there. That was an impressive performance over Moutinho. Chris Moutinho is a tough kid, man. I mean, whether you say he's elite level or not, given his record or what have you, look, he got a little cup of coffee in the UFC, went back to the regional stage and went on a nice win streak, earned his way back here, and he's known for having an incredible chin and durability, and he got laid out, man. So I'm with you on that. Wellmaker looks like a star to me.
You want to talk about my PFL experience?
Can we? I tuned in on a Thursday night to check out my boy, see what was going on at PFL, and sure enough, don't have to wait long at all to see you mired in some controversy, but I'm not so sure it needed to be discussed that way.
I mean, I think after all the replays were going, there wasn't any controversy from his corner. Let's set the stage. Alex Purgande is fighting Mike Bardsley. Purgande, for those of you who don't know, like, this kid is a rising talent within PFL. He won the contract through the Challenger Series. He's like a 7-0 pro now, who has every intangible you would want. Good-looking kid, ripped, shredded, great jiu-jitsu, amazing striking. Like, this kid is the real deal. So how about you set the stage, and then I can jump in.
Well, basically, so they're striking on the feet, and Purgande absolutely rocks Bardsley, but at the same time, Bardsley catches him with the low blow. So there's a wobbling from Purgande, but he gets caught with an illegal shot at the same time, and that's where you step in and call time real quick, right? And you're looking at the illegal shot, and you're saying, "Hey, we gotta separate, guys. Hold on, we'll take a look," and you make sure everybody's okay, and we get a quick restart. And what looked like it might have been a finishing sequence was pause. And sure enough, Bardsley kind of pulls it together. He ends up making it all the way to the end. He loses a decision. So nothing in the result of the fight was changed. But a lot of people, I think, in that moment thought, oh my gosh, should you steal an opportunity for this guy to finish the fight? And in between rounds, there's actually some review of it. And obviously Big John McCarthy is brought in as the godfather of all mixed martial arts officiating. I mean, the man, clearly helped set the rules and is an influence to everybody in the game, even to this day that he's not doing it anymore. And he kind of says, would have liked to seen, yes, there was an illegal blow there, but I would have kind of liked to seen Eric let it go because, you want to let this guy have the opportunity to finish the fight. If the guy doesn't turn over to you and protest the foul, then, you kind of got to let it go. So at that point, it's kind of looked at that, Eric McMahon made a mistake. And I'm watching on my couch. I'm like, man, Eric's pretty good at this stuff. I like to see his work. I don't know. Did he? And I was waiting. And then right after that, you happen to be wearing, as you were throughout the night, they're wearing the glasses with the referee, right? Where you can see the camera work. And when they show the replay, what do we see? We see Alexei Brigant turn to you and look straight at you and protest, even though he had just wobbled the guy. He's reacting instantly too. He hasn't even seen that he's wobbled the guy. He's feeling the shot to the cup, and he's like, hey, where are you at? And so I felt when they showed that video, you were completely vindicated as to exactly what you did. Had he not protested, maybe you let it carry on. But I'll let you speak to that. But I thought it was interesting because they went to John McCarthy, who says, don't know if Alex, I don't know if I would have stopped Alex in that moment because, he had done it. So did Eric make a mistake? I would have let him keep going. But then exactly what he says, unless this happened, it turns out it did happen, which I don't think any of us caught on the live broadcast, but we saw it from the footage in your glasses that they replayed.
I appreciate you adding all the color detail there. So Purgande takes a low blow, right? And we can argue how impactful it was or not. It doesn't change the fact that it was an illegal blow.
Right.
The illegal strike happens to the groin. He immediately turns to me, grabs his cup. Well, he's throwing an overhand at the same time, right? So then the strike lands to the groin. He turns to me and he goes, and he uses colorful language. What the ref? What the F? Right? So, and I'm in good position. I see it, and I call timeout. I walk in. Unbeknownst to both Purgande and myself, that punch, which looked like it was blocked,
right,
literally catches him behind the ear. And so I call timeout. Purgande turns around and starts walking to his neutral corner. And me and him both turn and look at Bardsley because I'm about to walk him to a neutral corner. And we see him doing the stanky leg all over the cage.
Staggering.
And I just remember just being like, oh, shit. Right? And then Purgande tries to call his own time in.
Yep. And we talked about this before, right? It's not your job to do that.
100%. And I stop him. I said, no, I called a timeout. Bardsley, neutral corner, good. Purgande, back to neutral corner. All right. Do you want to restart the match? Yes. Timekeeper, you ready? Yes. Fight. Right?
Following the proper scenario.
So, and that's, listen, Purgande did protest the foul to the groin. He protested that he got it, which is, in all practical purposes, is indicating he wants the time.
Right.
He didn't know he hurt his opponent. I didn't know he hurt his opponent until we looked at his opponent in somewhat of a little delayed reaction.
Yeah, and somewhat delayed reaction, the theme of the day, right? And I want to be clear, too, like, John McCarthy is absolutely right in what he was saying, that, like, if you see an opponent is wobbled and that the other opponent is just moving forward and looking like, just let it go. But at that point, I don't think, and again, I don't know the exact technical set. Now, John McCarthy is working from home, right? Like he's got the feed beamed into him. I don't know exactly how their technology works, but I'm imagining there's at least a slight delay. And I think at that point, if I recall correctly, they had not shown that footage that had come from your glasses anyway. So
they had it. They showed that after.
Exactly. So I want to make sure it's clear. Like, obviously, I'm not trying to question the expertise.
No, we ain't burying Big John here.
Right. Exactly. John knows exactly what he's talking about. But none of us had seen that footage. You were the only one that had seen that footage at that point. And I honestly do believe that footage showed that you handled it in exactly the right manner. And again, you talked about earlier, take your relationship with Kevin McDonald out of it. I'm saying take my relationship with you out of it and this podcast and all those things. I truly believe that once you see that, you totally understand what happened. And it's funny because we're seeing exactly what you were seeing. It's coming from the glasses that are on your eyes. So I think you made the right call there. And I can understand in the moment that you were a little bit frustrated or a little bit like, oh, no, what have we done? But I think it was shown that you did the exact right thing.
Well, and then you got to stand on I'm not going to say not on principle. You have to stand on mechanics. You have to stand on procedure. And so after the fight, this fighter was out of Killcliff. Ironically, the coach was with one of the fighters in North Dakota the prior weekend. So I got talking to the coach earlier. We struck up just a friendly relationship. He comes up to me after the completion of the 3 rounds and he goes, I don't disagree with you stopping it and calling a timeout. He did motion that he wanted the timeout. I've got no problem whatsoever. He goes, my question is, though, he wanted to start right away. Why didn't you let him start right away? And I said, because I call timeout. I am the only one who can call time in. And I'm not saying this from an ego standpoint. There are mechanics that have to go through that cannot be altered. I am not the official timekeeper of the bout. I am the sole arbiter of whatever happens here within the cage. So my procedure dictates what has to happen. Separate the fighters, check on everybody, and then when we are ready to go, I don't just say go. My mechanics tell me I have to say, timer, are you ready? Good. Fight. And so when I explained that to him, that like I had to make sure that me and the official timekeeper were on the same page, he was like, that makes 100% sense.
And I'll tell you what, man, and I know, you know, that commissions don't want officials necessarily going public all the time and going to social media and stuff like that. But I really honestly feel like that as fans, as fighters, as coaches, like that's all we want to hear, right? Is like, I ask you a question, you answer. And I know it's not always possible, but I'm glad that you were able to have that conversation so that people can say, oh, okay, there's a reason you did what you did. Now, I was smiling as you were explaining it to, because the other thing that went through my head is it would have been awfully funny if you'd have said, well, listen, sir, it's 2 things. 1, do you remember Alex Pereira and Jamal Hill? Okay. 2, have you ever had a phone thrown at you? Me and the timekeeper got to be on the same page, bro. I'm not trying to get a phone thrown at me again. You know what I mean?
Well, and because the official timer it does not matter. It is, you know, just so everybody is out there. Like when the UFC or PFL or whatever, and you see the timer blinking down in the corner, that is not the time to the bout. That is an estimated time of the bout.
Which is why normally you'll see on most broadcasts, I know we do it at CFFC, in the UFC, they'll normally kill the clock that's on screen anywhere between 5 and 10 seconds left in the round, just to allow for that understanding that, yeah, this is it. Now, the UFC one, you know, they've got the technology and it's great. They've got the technology. We've actually done this a couple times with CFFC as well, where you can take a feed from the clock and run that to the production truck, and that clock is actually tied to the official timekeeper clock. So then it is the official clock. But you're right. Unless you're at the highest level, most of the time, if you're watching it, remember that clock that's on screen is operated by somebody in the production truck, and it's the best estimation of being as close as possible to the official clock, which is the official timekeeper.
Right. And so that's the reason the fighter can't just restart it himself. That is the mechanicals. And I always say, in my opinion, what makes a good referee, everybody can call balls and strikes, but what makes a good referee is, can you stand on the mechanics? Can you articulate why? And do you know the rule back and forth so you can apply it applicably in any and all situations? That, in my opinion, is what makes a good referee. Number 1, mechanics. Number 2, that.
100% consistency and understanding why. Like I said, the fact that you were able to explain that, I think that's cool. And I like that, you know, once you did that he responded like, okay, I got it. Makes sense to me, man. So yeah. Obviously, look, man, like I said, I wouldn't defend you. You know me, man. We shoot it straight and we talk. I think maybe you could have gotten this wrong or you could have done this some better. I thought you nailed it spot on. I was glad to see that footage. Real quick, can you speak to what wearing those glasses is like? I'm always curious. Like it's a cool thing. And I mean, we see it over the years. Pride would have it back in the day. I've seen the UFC is testing a little bit of that too. They've got a camera that goes on the chest that I've seen as well, but we've seen these eyeglasses. It's cool footage, but I always wonder, I guess I've never really had a chance to talk to somebody that's done it. Like, is it distracting at all? Or is it, I don't know, like, because obviously we want the cool footage, but we don't want to make your job harder either.
It wasn't distracting to the job, to the degree of, it's going to inhibit me from doing my job. So no, it's not that. What I will say as a referee and reffing at that high level in that high stress environment, like on ESPN with world caliber athletes who have their whole livelihoods on the line, I take that deathly serious. And so when I'm in the cage, I am hyper aware of everything: sound, sight, touch. I'm hyper aware of everything. I am so locked in that everything I'm hearing is like, have you ever seen like the movie Limitless?
Right. Yep.
You know, when he kind of like focuses in and he sees all these damn equations coming in and it all just makes sense. Like that's how I envision like refereeing. You are so dialed in and all your senses are hyper aware that my senses are hyper aware that I am wearing these things, that the battery pack is jiggling a little bit on my back. And I liken it to like when you wear sunglasses, it doesn't impact your vision, but you could still see the frames.
Yep.
So it's like it's just now that was like the first and second fight. Like the third and fourth fight, I almost didn't think about it anymore.
Right, because at that point, it's just part of the uniform that you've had on all night.
Part of it, but at first it was a little bit, you know. And then I told the guy that would get me set up before every fight. I'm like, you crank this thing on as tight as it can, because what it is it's like these half frames that come over your eye, over the top of your eyes.
Right.
There's no lenses in it, and there's no bottom part to the frame. It's just over the top, and then goes behind the ear. And so you could see these black frames in the periph of your vision. Right. And that was the only thing I didn't like about it. I didn't like the jiggling on the back. But again, none of it inhibited for me doing my job. Believe it or not, in the Pellegrino, the Pregande fight, it was such an asset to have it on there.
It is true. It is really true. It's interesting. I like the footage, and like you said, it can be very valuable. I shudder to think when maybe an official gets caught looking in the exact wrong place when he makes a decision. You have me looking in the exact right place. It's a tough enough job as it is without people going back and Zapruder filming every frame of where the referee was looking at the right time and calling somebody out. But in this situation, it did help you. I just wonder about that. I think advancements in technology like that are really, really cool. And again, anything we can do to make broadcasts more unique and fun and enthralling and entertaining is cool, but not if it comes at the expense of making your job. Because at the end of the day, I mean, people's health is on the line. It's in your hands. I mean, that's what you're there to do. So but that's good insight, man. That's good to hear, though. That's like it's there, but it's not like totally distracting and totally bothersome.
It's like something like you're wearing something and you're like, it doesn't fit just right on my shoulder, but it doesn't stop me from doing anything. And if I don't think about it, it's not there. But if I think about it, it is there.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
So the first couple fights, I was thinking about it, or actually the first one of the first round, I was like, this is getting used to it. And then, no issues whatsoever. I've heard a lot of refs really being like, you don't ever want to wear those things. And I really didn't have a problem with it. I think it's from the standpoint of what I was saying is the hyper awareness and the hyper focus that if anything takes away from your focus, just even a little, black line at the top, it just takes it away from you. But I had no problem wearing it. And believe it or not, it vindicated me in a very controversial spot. So you know what? Ref Cam is good with me.
He's like, I love it. We should have him all the time. No, that's a good point. I think that's probably a good thing too. Like the way you said that you just kind of got used to it over the course of the night. That I'm sure if that became the norm, that it like every PFL event, every UFC event or whatever, if you're just using it, like after a couple repetitions, you're just going to forget that it's even there.
Yeah. But it was fun, man. Overall, great experience. Your boy Greg Savage is fun to work with. I
love Greg, man. I've known that guy for a long time. He's a good dude, man. Somebody else that, started on the journalism side of things and has gotten into the operation side of things and has been in the sport for a very, very long time, man. So he's a good dude.
I walk out of the cage and he goes, Eric, you almost had some effing chaos on your hands. And I actually thought like everybody was upset with me at the time. So I walk out of the cage, I looked to Blake Grice like in between rounds and he was like, he was like, I don't know, because he was working replay, but the replay isn't as technologically advanced in PFL as it is. We have to literally call to the truck to reload something, as opposed to in the UFC, I can dial it in and out myself.
Right.
And so he was like, I don't know, hold on. And he was like, oh, you're good. Like, not a problem whatsoever. Which made me feel a little bit better, right? But I walk out of the cage at the end of the third round, and Greg Savage is like, man, you about to have some chaos on your hands, Eric. And he goes, but you handled that perfectly. And I'm like, oh, thank goodness. And he goes, but Ray Sefo didn't see what happened. And he jumped up and he was screaming, what in the F are you doing, Eric? What in the F are you doing? Until I had to come and grab him and say, hold on, he did it right. Wait until you see the replay.
That's awesome. That's awesome. For anybody who knows Greg Savage, he was around the early days of Sherdog. So, I mean, he has literally been from the very early days of the sport. So he's another guy that, you know, I don't know if he's ever completed officials training at any point along the way, but has certainly been around for, you know, tens of thousands of fights. And, you know, the good thing about it is, even if you had screwed up, which you didn't, I want to be clear, but even if you had, the result of the fight didn't change. Now, had Mike Bardsley come back and won, then you start going, oh my gosh. But again, I'll say again, you made the right call, and it was vindicated by the footage. But, you know, even if for some reason people, even after walking through this and even after seeing this, if they're like, I still didn't like it, well, come on, man. The result of the fight didn't change. You know what I mean? You still got the right guy won.
Right. Looking forward. Let's talk about the card this weekend coming up. Khalil Roundtree versus Jamal Hill. And this is a fun fight.
I love it.
This could be I have a feeling that this is going to be an ultra violent fight.
Oh, I love it. Stylistically, these two guys are going to go at it. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'll always be a Khalil Roundtree fan. I had a chance to call him as an amateur coming up here in Las Vegas for Tough Enough. So I've seen him from the very beginning. And so to now see him, you know, at the very top of the game and headlining UFC cards, I mean, it's just incredible to see. Jamal Hill, obviously what he's been able to accomplish is amazing as well. But, you know, I'm excited. This checks every box for me. Okay, so not only is it stylistically a fun fight, but it also is an early morning fight. There is another way. On Saturday morning, the first fight is at 9 a.m. Pacific time. Okay, so here in Las Vegas, the first fight will be at 9 a.m. The main card will start at noon. So just, you know, 2 hours later for you, but in the Central Time Zone. But I love, to me, man, there is nothing better than getting up and watching fights. Honestly, I wish it was more normalized. I wish like maybe all the pay-per-views stayed in their normal time slot at night, but like the rest were like, oh, you know, like who doesn't like a good college football Saturday, right? Like you wake up in the morning, like there's football on right away, first thing in the morning. That's what I like, fights in the morning. So I wish this was normal, but it's in Azerbaijan. There's a bunch of fighters that are local to there that are going to be on the card. Tawfiq Musayev, by the way, if you've never seen Tawfiq Musayev, he's going to be making his UFC debut. Watch this guy. He is violence and excitement. You got guys like Nazim Sadikov, Muhammad Naimov that are so excited to be fighting over there. It's the first time there's been a UFC card in that region. Azerbaijan is not that far from like Georgia and those areas, Dagestan. It's that area of the world. So I imagine that this arena, the energy is just going to be electric. Anytime the UFC comes to town for the first time, it's big. And then when you got guys that are representing those countries in that area, it's big. So I think the atmosphere is going to be unbelievable. I think Saturday is going to be a hell of a lot of fun. And this main event, Jamal Hill, Khalil Roundtree Jr., big. It's meaningful in the light heavyweight division. And stylistically, it looks like it's going to be a banger. So I think we're in for some fun on Saturday.
I think the meaningfulness is it's going to knock one guy way out of the equation.
Yep. It really is, man. These guys are battling right now to stay up at the top of that weight class. You know, with everything that's going on, there's a little bit of uncertainty when the next title fight's going to happen. But you're right. Whoever comes up short here, man, they're going to have a long climb to get back to the top, man. So this is very, very meaningful. And I just have to be looking at the odds. Have you looked at the odds at all?
I have not.
Who would you favor?
I'd say Roundtree is a minus 165.
Spot on. Minus 155 to Jamal Hill, plus 130. So very, very accurate initial.
Well, the only reason is Jamal Hill's been finished his last couple fights, and that does, when you fight a guy as explosive as Roundtree.
Oh my God.
That's danger. But you know, if you can dictate your range and your power, then you know you need to be able to do that for 15 minutes or 25 minutes, whereas he only needs to do it once, and that's why I put the odds there. But outside of that, I don't know how this fight is going to go. It's just that's how I would do the odds as well.
No, you're spot on with that, and I like it. And that's, I mean, it's the power that Roundtree has is otherworldly, man. It really is insane. But you're right. You've had the recent losses from Jamal Hill. He's got some frustrations. This is a big one for him, man. I tend to agree with you in that. I think the odds are spot on in this one. But it's a live dog for Jamal Hill, to say the least. And this should be fun. We not to say these aren't complete mixed martial artists, and there might not be some grappling involved, but if you're a fan of liking,
there's not going to be grappling involved.
I agree. They're just going to throw down, man. These two dudes are just going to throw down. Rafael Fiziev against there could be. You never know. And then look, man, Rafael Fiziev versus Ignacio Bahamondes. What a fight that is, man. Stylistically,
turnaround for Fiziev, though.
It is. But he had some time off, so he's trying to make up for some lost time. So I'm looking forward to it. I think this is gonna be fun. And like I said, it's an early morning fight. It's easy to watch. It's on ABC, it's on network television in the afternoon. So it should be a fun night of fights. I think it's gonna give us definitely something to talk about next week for sure. And of course, we'll be leading in to International Fight Week.
And we'll both be there.
I can't wait, man. I'm looking forward to it, man. International Fight Week is gonna be a lot of fun. I'm gonna slip in a little vacation in between then, and then we're gonna have some fun in Las Vegas.
Yeah, Cabo Morgan over here.
Cancun. But yeah, that's right. We're definitely going to go be sitting in the pool and having some margaritas, and I think the wife will probably have a pina colada or two as well, and just hang out, enjoy a couple of days of much needed R&R, and then get back to it. And I'm looking forward to International Fight Week. My wife and kid are going to stay down there a little bit extra and visit some family and hang out. So I'm going to come back, and obviously that's always a busy week. But you know me, I try to be a good dad. As we celebrate a Father's Day weekend, I try to be a good dad. So when the UFC's in town, I still try to go to jiu-jitsu and still try to be around for dinner. But if they're out of town, like I can just go be at everything and not feel guilty about it, right? I can just go hang out, and
we're going to go to Power Slap. Then we're going to go have beers. Then we're going to watch the UFC the next day, and then we're going to go have beers. And then we're going to do Tough, and then we're going to go have beers.
See? You see the plan. You already understand what the schedule looks like. Yeah. I'm looking forward to that one, man. Like you said, Power Slap on Friday. And look, I know it's before you get in town, but I'm going to check out the USC BJJ product as well. They got that new – have you seen the new surface that they've got? They're putting it in it's not a pit. They didn't borrow the Karate Combat pit. They made a bowl, I guess. And so I'm interested to see if there's any legal pushback. They got plenty of lawyers in that company to make sure they did it right. But I know Craig Jones was a little bit –
Craig Jones, I don't think you can trademark embankments.
I don't either. Maybe, a specific, frame of it, yes. But it's like the UFC has trademarked the octagon, but you can't say, well, a 6-sided cage I can't use either. You know what I mean? So same thing. If you're not using the exact form of embankment that they have, I don't think you can. So, but I'm anxious to see it play out, because that is one revelation that I never thought, man, that grappling in a pit is a good thing. You know what I mean? Because it just stops those restarts, and it makes things continue and flow on. So I'm going to be checking that out as well. And then, like you said, Thursday night, that'll be Thursday night. And then, or maybe it's Wednesday, because you got the Hall of Fame as well. I got to look at the exact schedule. Then you have the Hall of Fame going on as well. Those are always cool to see. But then, yes, Power Slap, and then the UFC, and then, yes, the special Sunday matinee. So you'll be refereeing on the Sunday morning edition of Tough Enough. So very cool to see that.
I'm excited. I've known about Tough Enough since living in my Arizona days. Long time ago. So
great crew, man. I worked for that team from the time I moved out here in 2008 until just recently. So I went full time with CFFC. Obviously, in my new position, I can't be, I wouldn't say a competing organization, but I can't be commentating for another organization when I'm, working behind the scenes with CFFC. But love those guys at Tough Enough, man. Never have a bad word to say about them.
I'm a big fan of Justin Bernard.
Justin's the man. Justin Bernard's the man. It's so cool to see all of you. So we always talk about, like I said, Khalil Roundtree was a guy that I saw competing as an amateur in Tough Enough, right? For years and years, they only did amateur fights, but they always had one of the best amateur shows around. Like, the production was on point, the live event was good, and then recently they did pro, and they got the contract with UFC Fight Pass, and they're doing big things. But it was always cool because, like I said, Khalil Roundtree was a guy that I saw compete as an amateur. Ronda Rousey is the most famous one that ever came out of there competing as an amateur. So there's all these fighters that came through, but then you look at guys like Mark Smith and Chris Tyone. they were referees in Tough Enough for years and years and years. Junichiro Kamijo was a judge for years and years and years. Justin Bernard, a ring announcer for years and years and years. So it wasn't only just, athletes that were making their way through the amateur stage and making it up to the top. It was, everybody around as well was getting a ton of reps and getting opportunities. So it's cool to see. Great group of guys over at Tough Enough. Obviously, I'm CFFC to the core, but I'll never say a bad thing about those guys. I enjoyed working those guys. I mean, literally, 16 years of working with those guys being out here in Las Vegas. So it's cool that you'll get to see an event. And that Sunday matinee show, that'll be kind of fun. Like I said, I like early morning fights, man. To just wake up and go start watching as people throw down in the cage, I'm down.
And I'm even going to be able to fly out Sunday night, which is pretty cool.
Love that. You can get back home. How cool is that?
Yeah, it's really cool. So with that being said, this was a fun episode. Usman looks great. Eric didn't F up. And we got a card coming up this weekend. So for that being said, for John Morgan, I'm Eric McMahon. Enjoy the fights.